What are we going to talk about?
Well, I have no idea what your plan is for this particular thing. Are we talking about Gavin's art, or Gavin as a person, or what do you want to do?
I was going to talk about rhododendrons.
No, well, that's fine. Yes, let's do that. Yeah. Fine.
I don't know what I was going to talk about. Are you rolling now?
Well, I think we also.
We're on film. We started.
Oh my God! Well, we haven't got much time then. So
let's ring the egg.
Yes.
You see, that's what it's like. What were you going to ask me? Was it the other question that you didn't mention earlier on?
I think we've been through a lot of the things I was going to ask Gavin, but like, people who know him and stuff like that as to...
Does anybody know anybody, though? I mean, looking at the egg and listening to the egg.
Yes.
Let's listen to the egg. Shh.
Wonderful sound.
Isn't it a lovely noise?
It is.
I mean, do you think we're going to find that in 2,000 years, hanging around somewhere? We'll be digging up a part of Britain, whatever it's going to be called by then, and we'll find this. It'll be underneath a mosaic pavement.
Like
and I'll wonder what on earth it was. And then I'll realise it's an egg. And I'll think, they made that 2,000 years ago. That's what we do these days.
Yes. Well, it's certainly going to endure
a
long time, isn't it? Because, being bronze and of that size, it's going to be there somewhere.
I mean, when I look at these eggs, it makes me start to think. There's something about it, about ideas starting. And everyone talks about the Greek stuff and the classics, but I don't know anything about the classics at all. I know something about rhododendrons, but not about the classics. And it makes one think, what is life all about? And it sort of triggers questions like that. And then one starts to think about answers. What is life all about? And then how can one know? I mean, do you know what life's all about? Well, Seb's behind the camera. If you can see just behind the camera, there's a lovely view out of a window, and it's about what life's all about. Mark, what do you think? Is that what it's all about?
Well, we start off on the most basic level. Here we have an egg. It's a pretty large egg, as you can obviously tell. But what does it mean? And when we approached it from a different direction, it looks like a perfect sphere. It doesn't look like an egg, which is why I thought...
You can't see that shot at the moment. That's in the other shot later on.
So therefore, it has so many different possible meanings, doesn't it? Both as a world, as the source of life and creation and stuff like that. So
and once one starts thinking like that, where does one stop? Where does one stop thinking every day? Does one thinks about those summer days? I'm looking at the egg, not at the camera, of course. Where does one, does one think about those summer days, watching people down at the beach? Does one think about cricket?
Yes.
Does one think about rhododendrons? Or is it rhododendri? Or hippopotamus, hippopotami? I don't know. But I mean, what does one think about? Does one start to think about what life was like all those years ago when things were different? And if that's...
Yes.
And those times. And once one starts to think about it, where does one stop?
Yes.
Is that what the egg's all about? Does it just get you thinking?
It does get you thinking. You think even if it was a different size or a different colour, for example. Now, Gavin's made very small ones as well as...
This is one of the large ones, of course.
This is one of the big ones, yeah. But if that was, say, in, a pink colour or something like that, it would be different. Or
would you think different thoughts?
Maybe, yes. Yes, I think I would, because I had this view of the world from the one side, and if I saw it in a different way, if it was gold, for example, I might think it's the sun or the moon or something of that sort.
That can be quite confusing. It sounds quite tiring, doesn't it?
Yes.
To think about all of that at the same time and in a different way.
Yes.
Actually, you'd have different. So that's interesting. That's an interesting point. The idea that people think different things all at the same time, so that you could look at something and think one thing.
Yeah.
I could look at the same thing and think something else.
Yes, I have to laugh. But it's very true. It's exactly how it is, and so people will see.
Well, it's not. It's exactly how it is for you.
Surely, for many people, I think they will have different reactions to the same work of art. So you could show it to them, and one person will think it means this, and the other will think something else, and the other will say, "Well, it's just an egg, isn't it?"
Does it make people think about what they see in the mirror? If they start to think about themselves, and do they see different people in the mirror at different times of the day? When you look in the mirror, when you look at your TV screen, there you are. Do you think at different things? Does one think different things about oneself?
Yes.
And is that confusing? And then what's one think about other people? And does one start to think about all of it? Look, the egg moves as well. Look, I don't know if you can see this, viewers, but the egg will move if one pushes it. I don't want to push it too much, otherwise it might, roll off down that hill over there behind us. But it does move a little bit. It's a bit like life, isn't it?
I wonder how heavy it is. Do you know that? It must be a fair old weight.
It is a fair old weight, you're quite right. I mean, you couldn't pick it up. You couldn't put this in your pocket, for example.
No.
It's too heavy.
No, well, that's right. But
It is a fair old weight.
You could certainly put it in your garden because it's bronze and it's patinated or whatever it might happen to be, although I would ill-advise from putting it anywhere. It might be on public display where you get...
Otherwise people might see it.
Well, no, they might steal the thing. I mean,
No, they couldn't. It's too heavy. It's a fair old weight. They couldn't take this.
Well, I mean,
they wouldn't.
Henry Moores and stuff like that. I've written stories on some of those have been actually been removed, and also some of the others as well.
By people who shouldn't have taken them.
Yes, and melted down, which is is just absolutely shocking. So,
Yeah.
I love you, Egg. Please stay safe. Yeah,
And then
she's
that's
wonderful.
interesting. You think about it, it was just bits of bronze, and it was melted into that shape.
Yes.
And when people looked at the bits of bronze before it was in that shape, what do you think they thought about? And that's a whole other question, isn't it? It's part of the extension of what one thinks about. Life is almost a sort of endless stream of thoughts and memories. And then there's a point at which is more important, what you're thinking about the egg, what you're thinking about, well, what one's thinking about oneself, or is one just thinking about last Tuesday and what happened then, or is one thinking about what one's going to have for lunch?
Many people might think that with the egg. I don't know, yes.
There's a food thing, but you can't eat this one. But it might make you think about egg sandwiches.
Yes.
And if you think about egg sandwiches, you start to think about, again, the cricket matches and the way you used to eat them.
Yes.
And Aunt Hilda, who used to come and watch cricket in those days.
Gosh, but I don't remember a cartoon, actually. It was of a Moor, which was outside the
Moor
Tate.
what?
It was the Henry Moore.
Oh, sorry,
sculpture.
sorry.
And it had a big hole in the stomach. And there's a man and a woman looking at it and saying, that reminds me, I'm rather hungry. It's a big hole.
Well, that's conceptual art, isn't it? You look at something like this,
Yeah.
and it's just a bronze egg, but it gets you thinking. And that's the whole thing.
Yes, yes.
That's all part of it.
Well, the story I was telling Gavin earlier on of going to the Museum of Modern Arts in Oxford.
Not in New York.
No, the one, and it was just after it had opened.
Oxford?
And it had,
Just after Oxford had opened?
Just after the Museum of Modern Arts.
Sorry.
And it had a food counter, which was like in the middle of some of the displays.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was sort of saying, "This is activist art. It's so relevant." And I was saying, "No, Chris, it's the food counter." You know. But anyway, this you couldn't eat this one. But
You couldn't. They don't give you. You couldn't. You want to though. Looking at it, you just want to eat it.
Yes.
But actually, sitting next to it makes me feel very peaceful. It's nice.
It is.
And when you listen to it, I love tapping bronzes. There's something about it. But even doing that, I used to go, well, I suppose with my mother, and you'd see bronzes in a park and you'd tap them.
Yes.
And there would be this sort of echoing noise. And it wasn't about hollowness or emptiness inside or any of those things which are too complicated for me, someone, silly as me to understand. It was just about a nice noise.
Yes.
And it is just a nice noise, it's as simple as that. Some things are more complicated and some things are just a nice noise.
Yes.
But then even that, hearing the noise makes me think about times I've heard nice noises previously.
Yes. But it depends on how it's cast, but I can imagine this was being cast in one piece pretty much, so rather than like
Rather than
two
typecast.
You're right, being opposed to typecast as well.
I think it was cast in two bits. It was cast in two bits. Are you okay, Seb? Still rolling? Still filming?
It was cast in two, was it?
It was cast in two and sort of welded together.
Yeah.
By people who know how to do that.
Yeah. So you can't tell the seam. And
You can't tell. You say that. No, you can't tell the seam. And then they added all these things to it and made it go that nice colour.
Yes.
It's wonderful. That's one of the things I love as well. Just the pure, and then it's moving away from the egg itself, but just the shape and the colour and the form. And again, I mean, we can pretend to be terribly intellectual and talk about conceptual art and the whole idea of shape, colour and form and how it triggers thoughts in the mind. But it does. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
It does. When you look at that, it's like looking out, again, if you look out, viewers, you can't see, but if you look out of a window and you see the view behind you, when you see the hills and the view down to the sea, it makes you think of the summer days. And in the same way, when you look here at the egg, just the shape and the colour makes you think about other things.
Yeah, I would say as my passing comment or closing comment, just think if it was a large Easter egg, though, it would keep you fed for quite a long time, wouldn't it?
But it wouldn't make that nice noise. Okay, thanks, Seb.